Hey friends, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name is Marcello. Today we will discuss Matrix Audio and 3 of their excellent products that are part of my review stable for all my reviews currently: the Matrix Element X, Element M, and Mini-I Pro 3. Matrix Audio's origin story started in 1999 with 3 high school friends who loved to talk audio, play musical instruments, and study audio devices. The founders became more serious about forming an actual company in 2009, and with more knowledge and experience under their belts, they eventually started Matrix Electronic Company Limited in 2013. I first heard of Matrix Audio a couple years ago and always wanted to check out some of their products, but something just always seemed to come up. I was chatting with a couple of my trusted audio buddies, the Professor and Sheldon, on our Hi-Fi Hangout Discord server when they both expressed how good the Matrix X Saber Pro and Matrix Element X were as digital analog converters, which further planted the seed in my head that I needed to hear what Matrix Audio had to offer. I may have never jumped on the Matrix Audio train, but after going through several different streamers that use Blue Sound for streaming, I decided to check out Roon. It didn't take me long to really fall in love with Roon's user interface, unique multiple room features, and ease of use. Then in 2020, one of my buddies, Mark, offered to send his Matrix Element X out to me for review so I could try it with Roon. Once I got the Element X hooked up to my audio chain, I was immediately struck by how fast, detailed, airy, and the sense of aliveness it brought to the music compared to many other digital analog converters I had heard. After landing on filter number 4, Slow Roll-Off, as my favorite for its most natural sound, I started rolling the Element X with several different amps as a DACS streamer, as well as testing the internally balanced headphone amp with several other headphones. More on this in a bit. As far as a DAC, I found the Element X very easy to synergize audibly with any power amplifier for speakers and any headphone amplifiers. Matrix Audio products that I have heard so far do not have a colored sound presentation, just detailed, dynamic, fast, alive, with good staging, pinpoint accuracy, and the most natural, unfatiguing sound I have heard from an ESS-based DAC. I had heard several other DACs before the Element X that either colored the sound a bit too much for my taste, or were too bright, too fatiguing, or they didn't present all the micro details in the music that I knew were present. The Element X fixed all of this for me. Of course, like any product, it wasn't perfect. Streaming with the Matrix Element X presented some issues early on. I experienced some drops in the music and some problems with the app not finding the device through Roon. This is when any company has the opportunity to shine. Tech support from Matrix Audio was excellent with quick response times and friendly communication. I quickly realized that my router from several years ago required an update if I wanted to stream via the wireless functionality built into the Element X. After upgrading my router and adding a range extender, my issues were mostly eliminated. I also tested the performance of the Element X with USB, which is dead quiet, as well as with a local area network connection, which is also excellent and highly stable. The Matrix Audio Remote app is pretty good, not as good as using the Roon app in my experience, but user interface and hardware-software integration are some of Roon's greatest strengths. Matrix devices do get updates along with the Matrix Audio Remote application, so one could and should expect things to continue to improve. To be clear though, I use all my Matrix devices streaming primarily with Roon, as I don't have a physical digital media server, so most of my experiences will be based on how the Matrix Element X, Element M, and Mini-I Pro 3 implement with Roon streaming Qobuz and Tidal through the wireless functionality, local area network, and USB. Now that we talked a bit about Matrix Audio and how I discovered them, let's talk about what info you can find in this video, as it will be a bit different from other videos I have done in the past. All 3 of these Matrix Audio products I will discuss are such feature and technology rich, it would take an hour-long video or several separate videos to cover them all. So I will cover my experiences and some of my favorite features while discussing some of the essential areas of the build quality to me of all 3 devices. I will also give you my audible impressions and touch on some synergistic pairings with headphones, headphone amplifiers, and speaker power amplifiers I think prospective buyers should know about. I will link to each one of the Matrix devices and other personal and home audio products discussed in the video description for you guys to dive in a bit deeper so you can compare them and make the most informed decision on which one is potentially right for you. With all that out of the way, let's dive in. The Matrix Element X sits next to the new X Saber Pro 3 in their flagship lineup. The Element X uses a powerful quad-core ARM processor with the flagship ES9038 Pro DAC chip alongside the extremely low-noise LDO ES9311 and Crystech CC HD950 clock source, creating one of the best audible implementations in my experience of any ESS chip-based system at the time of this video. The Matrix Element X is capable of numerous widespread formats and bit rates up to 32-bit 768 kHz. The Matrix Element X is also DSD capable with full Mqa decoding and unfolding via the XU216 XMOS processor for Tidal users. The Matrix Element X is likely going to satisfy even the most objective measurement-based lovers and many subjectivists in the audio world. Another unique feature I dig is the hybrid digital analog volume control that is both precise and easy to use with the included remote, the Matrix Audio app, and the Roon app. The Matrix Element X also has an excellent analog preamplifier with up to plus 10 dB of analog gain that can be connected to your favorite active speakers or power amp for your favorite passive speakers. In my current home stereo setup, the Matrix Element X outputs from its balanced XLR outputs into my Schiit Freya Plus, which runs out from its balanced XLRs into two Schiit Agere monoblocks. I can then output from the Freya Plus into more devices single-ended, or use the RCA outputs on the Element X to other amps I may bring in for review or wish to listen to, completely bypassing the Freya Plus preamplifier. The Matrix Element X also is a dual-mode headphone amplifier consisting of 4 independent amplifier units. When using its balanced output, the Element X can drive one set of headphones. The X can drive 2 sets of headphones in single-ended mode, each having its independent stereo amplifier. This feature could be cool for those of you lucky enough to have a significant other or good friend in the house who wants to listen with you simultaneously. I will link to the Matrix Element X in the video description for the rest of its specifications and measurements for the sake of time. The Element X has both balanced XLR outputs on the rear of the unit and single-ended RCA, giving the user options on how they want to implement the X into their headphone or 2-channel setups. The Element X uses a Nortel toroidal transformer, Nichicon audio-grade capacitors, several isolation layers, a well-designed 4-layer PCB, and a double shell structure that is one of the best built and designed enclosures I have ever seen. My buddy Mark joked with me when we were talking about the Matrix Element X that if he was listening to headphones in his room and a zombie crashed through the door, the heaviest, most durable thing in arm's reach he would grab to smash the zombie down with would be the Matrix Element X. He wasn't kidding. It is built tough. Thanks again, Mark. I ended up liking the Matrix Element X so much I bought it from him. Next, let's take a look at the Element M, which provides many of the same features and build qualities of the Element X with a few differences and a more affordable asking price. The Element M is currently positioned as the mid-range of the Element series. However, this doesn't mean it has mid-level sound or build quality. The Element M uses the ES9028 Pro chip and SiTime low-phase noise clock with an excellent implementation of an ESS-based system. The DAC chip in the Element M isn't quite at the same level of performance as the ES9038 Pro found in the Element X, but it's not very far behind. For the Element M, Matrix Audio developed a new low-impedance headphone amplifier using discrete components, a bipolar input stage, making the Element M's amp quiet, accurate, and very easy to listen to. The Element M, like the X, pairs well from an impedance and sound standpoint with the more efficient, dynamic, and revealing sound signatures of Focal headphones for my personal preferences. The headphone output on the Element M is less powerful when comparing to the balanced output on the X. However, it is slightly more powerful via the single-ended output at 33 ohms, making it again pretty solid with the current Focal closed-back headphones such as the Radiance, Celeste, and Stellia. Users with 300 ohm headphones from the likes of ZMF or Sennheiser should look at pairing the Element M and X as a DAC streamer with a more powerful separate amplifier. For more efficient headphones, the Element M and X shouldn't be an issue. Again, I will link to the rest of the specifications of the Element M in the video description for you to dig a bit deeper and compare. Lastly, let's look at some of the features, tech, and build quality of the Mini-I Pro 3. The Pro 3 is the 4th generation from the Mini-I series. The chassis isn't constructed as beefy as the Element series, however, it is still very well done with a few things that cannot be found on the current Element series. first of which is the 3.3-inch LCD screen and upgraded user interface. It also is smaller in size than the Element X and M, allowing it to stack very well with many other headphone amps such as the iFi Pro iCan for more power and to add some tube flavor into the mix. The Mini Pro 3 has dual-band Wi-Fi with a built-in antenna versus the larger attached router-style antenna found on the Element series products. The Mini has a balanced headphone amplifier using a 4.4mm headphone output and a standard 1/4-inch headphone output. A huge plus is the Pro 3 uses the same incredible Crystal clock found in the flagship Element X. The Mini does use a DAC chip that is not at the same level as the Element series products, the ES9038Q2M, however, it is still plenty revealing, and DAC chips alone are not everything when considering the quality of sound. Much of how a DAC sounds is greatly based on the implementation and the other components of the product. So a few bullet points that were important to me about the build and design of all of these units. First, they had to be Roon ready and fully wireless. They all can decode Mqa without the use of additional software. They all have local area network connections, balanced XLR outs, and very quiet USB performance. A few areas that I think could be improved on or took some time for me to get acclimated to was the user interfaces of all three units. There is a learning curve, especially if you're coming from a more plug-and-play type DAC. Having to push a tiny button on the back of the Mini Pro 3 to access a settings menu is a bit of an inconvenience, and I wish the button was somehow implemented on the front. Getting the units properly integrated with my network took some effort and upgrades to my home network to get the best performance from all of the units when using them wirelessly. Lastly, the headphone amplifiers are not the most powerful as I discussed, so this could be an issue if you have harder to drive headphones. As far as the quality of sound of these units, I am most impressed with the Element X and M, but the Mini Pro 3 also sounds excellent, especially for its asking price and all the features you get with it. Comparing the sound signatures of DACs, in my experience, is usually subtle as far as differences in sound when comparing similar designs and price ranges. For me, both the Element X and M are outstanding with an accurate, airiness, fast, spatial, and alive quality to their sound, allowing music to sound very natural. The Mini Pro 3 also possesses these qualities, but the airiness, detail, and reproduction and spatial attributes are not quite as good as the Element series. I would categorize all these DACs to be on the neutral sounding side with excellent, well-balanced performance across the entire frequency range. They are not necessarily as polite as some other DACs, designed to sound a bit more rounded off. They are also not elevated in the lower end. I feel the Matrix line of DACs pairs best with amplifiers and speakers for my personal preferences that possess a bit more weight in the bass region and have punchy dynamics. One other all-in-one unit I compared at a higher price tag to the Matrix Element X was the Core TT2. I felt the sound of the Element X presented a more neutral sound. Again, when comparing DACs audibly at this level, the differences are more minor but noticeable. I felt the Element X also had a bit faster response to quick transients in music. The TT2 was very holographic, enveloping with a touch more color to its sound, which when paired with a suitable amplifier, headphones, and speakers was extremely enjoyable. I did a live stream comparing these two DACs and will link to that video at the end of this video. Both sound great but different, and again, it depends on what your preferences are. I also compared the Element M and Mini Pro 3 to the Schiit Bifrost 2, arguably one of the better DACs at its price. There is no doubt the sound presentation of the Bifrost 2 is impressive for the money, especially if you like a bit more weight in the lower end and are willing to give up a bit of accuracy in favor of some flavor being sprinkled on top of the music. I also spent some time comparing them to the Topping D90, which when it was released was dubbed as a giant killer, which is a bit of a ridiculous term. The D90 sounded even warmer and smoother in my chain than the Bifrost 2, and a touch more bloated in the lower end. The sound signature of the D90 is paired well with a clean, neutral sounding amp like the Topping A90 or the ZMF Pendant tube amplifier with stock tubes. I found all of the Matrix products, when paired with a tube amplifier, to possess a very palpable quality of sound that I'm personally looking for when reviewing gear. Some of my favorite amplifier speaker pairings so far with the Matrix products are two Schiit Azure power amplifiers running in mono configuration with the Freya Plus as the preamp paired with the Tecton Lore reference speakers, the Schiit Vidar power amplifier paired with the Freya Plus or the ZMF Pendant as the preamplifier matched with the KEF LS50 Meta speakers, the Schiit Vidar paired with the Mini Pro 3 and KEF LS50 Metas, the Klipsch Heresy 4s paired with the Rysong A50 Mark III 300B single-ended triode integrated tube amplifier, and the Wilsonton R8 paired with the Matrix Element X. Stay tuned for reviews on many of those home stereo products I just mentioned. For headphones, I really enjoyed the Amps & Sound Nautilus, the ZMF Pendant, the i5 Pro iCan, the Felix Audio Elise Mark II and Echo Mark II, the Bottlehead Crack, and the Mqa OG, now known as the Forge, paired with a Matrix line of DAC streamers. I find these amps to have good synergy with the spatial, airy, detailed, accurate Matrix audio house sound, especially with the Element X and M. I am a firm believer in the importance of quality digital analog converter in your audio chain to appreciate music and all its subtleties. My favorite headphone pairings for my preferences with the built-in amplifiers of the Matrix line of products are the Stellia, the Clear MG, and the Radiance from Focal with the Element X, M, and Mini Pro 3. I also enjoyed the Meze Empyrean, Rad Zero, ZMF Aeolus off of the balanced outputs of the Element X and Mini Pro 3. To reiterate my sound preferences, for those of you who may be new to the channel, I prefer a balanced sound with a touch more warmth in the bass regions and a natural holographic sounding mid-range that gives instruments and vocals body, realism, and soul. An airy top end with good sparkle and extension that is smooth and doesn't come across as sharp or fatiguing, and an overall sound that is dynamic, evoking emotion when I listen. These are a few of the things I am listening for when I'm reviewing or trying to synergize different gear. In addition to my impressions, I wanted to share a couple of my very knowledgeable friends' impressions on what they thought of some of the Matrix products they have heard or own. Let me know if you like this, and maybe I can keep having a few of my friends weigh in on each new video with their thoughts in addition to mine. Sheldon, a current owner of the Element X, enjoys it for the detail, stage, imaging, and streaming functionality through Tidal, Roon, and his local media server. He likes that it has a local area network connection, built-in Wi-Fi, and remote control of the device from Roon, the Matrix app, or the included remote control. The last couple of things that stand out to Sheldon are the many formats the Element X can play, and the ability to choose the different built-in filters to tweak the sound to his preferences. Some areas Sheldon felt could have been a bit better about the Element X is the built-in amp, as it will not be a substitute for an excellent amp. He felt the Element X may not sound natural at times and can have a bit softer, lower-end dynamics than some other DACs. The professor also weighed in on his experience with the Matrix X Saber Pro and felt it has a very well-balanced sound, with a slight emphasis on impact energy thrown into the mix. He felt the sound signature keeps it from sounding drawl, uninteresting, bright like most of the other ESS implementations he has heard. Thanks to both Sheldon and the professor for weighing in with your thoughts. I appreciate you both. So let's wrap up. All three of these Matrix units I discussed in the video get a solid recommendation from me if you're willing to put in the time to learn their user interfaces and potential networking challenges. They are easy to recommend if you stream your music through Roon, as this is one of their greatest strengths. If you don't need a headphone amplifier built in, I would highly recommend checking out the X Saber Pro line of digital analog converters. If you want to dip your toes in the Matrix audio pool without spending a ton of money, I recommend going with the Mini Pro 3 version of the Mini line, as the non-Pro version is not Roon ready, has no Wi-Fi, and doesn't decode MQA, which is more limiting. I hope my experiences and thoughts on these three all-in-one units from Matrix Audio was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment on the video, and visit mrhifireviews.com and follow our Instagram for additional content. Thanks again, friends, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell icon and smash the like button for me. You can also show your support by becoming a Patreon donor, which gives you access to our private Discord server so we can chat about all kinds of different audio gear more frequently. Until next time, friends, I appreciate your support and much love to you all.